Okay, so our next speaker is a man called Arash Aazami, who I've actually met before at a previous event, which is super cool to see his face again. He is joining us via Zoom, very grateful for him turning up. And he is a futurist entrepreneur, Internet of Energy architect. Arash designs for an Internet of Energy to connect every human being to abundant renewable resources. The future of energy, according to Arash Aazami, is his lifelong quest. He envisions energy to be abundant, free, and no longer burdened by markets in 2050, enabling all humankind to contribute to an ever-advancing society. It's not a job, it's a mission, Arash says, and I feel like we should all hear what he has to say and take that mission on board for ourselves for a more sustainable future. Arash! Hello! Can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can!
Oh, lovely. It's so good to see you again, Tilly.
It's so good to see you.
I rejoiced at the memory of our time in Canada together a couple of years ago. So, do you want me to take it away?
Yeah, I mean, we're just happy you could come here. It's super great. What?
Yeah, so it's an honor to be able to share some stories with you, and I already kind of made the deal with the organization that next time I should be with you live and present. So, and I'm already looking forward to that because that nothing beats being together physically. So what I'm going to try and talk about a little bit is the topic of what I tend to call energy Buddhism, because if you go into energy and you learn more and more about it, you learn that everything is connected to everything. And also, thank you so much, David, for your awesome presentation, because I believe that with your business model, you are right on the spot. This is exactly what the world needs now. New ways of dealing with energy and new market models, basically. And this is also a topic that I've been involved with for, I would say, the past 15 years or so already. So I feel very happy that there's room for new initiatives like yours right now. To start off, my story is my name is Arash Aazami, which is a Persian name. My mother was Dutch, and when I was a little kid, they decided we're going to move to West Africa to do development work. So that's where I grew up. So this picture was taken by my mother in the early 1980s, and the little boy in the middle is me. And then next to me, there's my brother Omid and our neighbor Amadou. And as you can see, we are watching television in our yard. And the thing was, we had one of the two televisions in our town. There was one public broadcast in the entire nation, and it had shows 3 times per week. And now the thing was that we could sit ready to watch these TV shows, and then we would flick the switch of the TV, and then either something would happen or nothing would happen. Because our reality was that energy access was not a given. We had to get lucky to actually get electricity out of the outlet because we had power cuts on a day-to-day basis. And still today in Niger, this is quite an issue. Now, as already mentioned, we are, I believe, in a rather severe energy crisis right now in Europe. And as Henry Kissinger said once, there cannot be a crisis next week because my schedule is already full. And this is exactly what crises do. If they hit you, you're not going to look into your schedule and think by yourself, well, this is really convenient, I'm going to deal with it right now. No, they're going to hit you when you least expect them, and then you'll have to deal with them. There's no option. There's no choice. Now, if we look at the nature of the energy crisis, of course, we see these massively increasing energy prices, like the gas price in the Netherlands that went up 1,100% within the course of 1 year, which results into gas prices of €4.60 per cubic meter. As David already mentioned, these gas prices really put a burden also on electricity prices. People in the Czech Republic with $700 or euro energy bills, which is absolutely crazy. Now, is this new? No, not really. We have had energy crises before. I remember one in around 2008, which wasn't as severe. And then also before that, in 2002, there was an energy price crisis in California. with a company called Enron. And what Enron understood very well was the market. Because if there is a deficit between supply and demand, if there is more demand than there is supply of energy, the prices go up. Now, if you combine that with some fear of a security of supply, the prices don't go up naturally, they go up exponentially. And so what they did was they planned the strategic maintenance of their power plants specifically during the hours that the demand was higher. And then also they discovered that if there would be a forest fire or something like that, that would cut off a part of the high voltage network, then the prices would really hike up severely and they would make a lot more money. So they caused forest fires to increase the prices. Now, these people have been put in jail, they've been trialed. And I believe that that's very good because they basically took lives, they played with the lives of people. But the exact same thing is happening right now with Gazprom in Russia, which are gaming the market in the exact same way as Enron did 20 years ago by influencing the development of the gas price, by increasing fear, by planning strategically the maintenance on their pipes, or even and even though not proven yet, but probably there's a reason for the sabotage on Nord Stream 1 and 2. But anyways, this is what we are dealing with today. And what we can conclude from this is that the energy market itself can be considered to be broken because the market, by design, is not in service of its clients anymore, of you and I, of the people. Laws and regulations that we see in Europe are unfit for today's and tomorrow's situation. So we need new laws and new regulations. Society is in need of structural solutions right now. We cannot wait. We need them. The energy sector shows a lack of ability to adapt and innovate. And also that has to do with the fact that they have vested interests in the status quo. So you cannot blame them. I mean, if you have billions invested in all kinds of power plants, then you'll have to pay those back to the bank that you probably borrowed that money from. So that's also keeping us inside this status quo that is far from optimal. But the reality of all of this is that more and more Europeans are working between 1 and 1.5 days every week to be able to pay their energy supplier, which basically means that you don't work for your employer or your own business anymore. You work for your energy supplier because this is the amount of money that you need to pay for them. This is what you make in around 1 to 1.5 days every week. Now, is that the true magnitude of the crisis? No. It's even a lot worse. Because if you look at the rate at which we are burning fossil fuels versus the rate at which Earth can replenish those reserves of fossil fuels, we're going too fast. It took the Earth around 500 million years to build up our reserves of coal and oil and gas. 500 million years of photosynthesis, sunlight hitting plants' leaves, eventually being converted into the resource that we are using now. It takes us around 500 years to finish those resources. That means that we are going 1 million times faster than our planet. Now, if you're going 1 million times faster, you want to be in balance with the planet, but you still want to keep the models as we know them. That means that if you drive a diesel-powered car that runs 1 liter of diesel in 15 kilometers, you'll have to design a diesel-powered car that will do 1 liter of diesel for 15 million kilometers. And that kind of shows the magnitude of the challenges that we are facing today. It means that we need to rethink all our models. We need new models. Still, with all that energy that we are using, 2.5 billion people globally live in energy poverty. This is the kitchen of Madame Kimba, who is the mother of my childhood friend, Omar. This is her kitchen, and she relies on collecting biomass on a day-to-day basis. Collecting biomass means finding wood so that you can cook, finding wood so that you can fulfill your family's primary energy needs. This costs, especially the women in many sub-Saharan African countries and in quite some other places in the world, about 30% of their waking hours, sometimes more. Now, if you're spending 30% of all the hours that you're awake on fulfilling your primary energy needs, all that time cannot be spent on earning an income. It cannot be spent on attaining an education. It cannot be spent on raising your children. So that means that if you live in energy poverty, you're probably going to remain poor for the rest of your life until the moment that you are granted access to modern forms of energy. So energy is the gateway to getting out of poverty to wealth. In 2007, I was given this image by Larry Stout. Larry, at that time, was the director of the Irish Energy Institute, the Dundalk Institute of Technology. And he asked me, what you see here? And I looked at it and I was baffled. And then I realized, wait a minute, we're looking at a timeline here. So this is yours. And then it dawned on to me, wait a minute, we are looking at fossil fuel consumption by humans through the history and the future of humankind. Wow. For the first time in my life, I realized that for the greatest part of our existence as humans, we have relied on renewable resources. It's only until around 150 years ago that we started to use fossil fuels. So renewable resources have actually been our basis. We use renewable resources when we discovered fire. We use renewable resources to discover new continents with our sailboats. We use renewable resources, and the Netherlands specifically are known for this, with our windmills during the pre-industrialization era. And we were really smart with those renewable systems. But it wasn't until the moment that we discovered that we could release massive amounts of energy by setting fire on some pieces of the crust of the earth. And we could release those amounts of energy at once, at the flick of a switch, that we were able to, for the first time, industrialize, which meant that we were able to melt steel, for example, on a large scale, to make all kinds of products, to become very mobile with one another, to visit one another, and also to reduce the fulfillment of our energy needs to the flick of a switch, which means that suddenly we had the time to develop ourselves a lot more quickly than we had ever been used to. Now we are at this point, and this is a pivotal point, obviously. It means that we are at the peak. And if you zoom in right now, the latest DNVGL reports are showing that we are actually right on that peak. So that means that we're on the verge of decreasing massively our fossil fuel consumption. And that means decarbonization, which looks like this, or I have no idea what this is. It's in the future, but I'm pretty sure it's 100% renewable. So basically, we're moving from a renewable era to a non-renewable era to what I call renewables 2.0. Because what is the biggest difference now versus the pre-industrial era? Is that we found ways to fulfill our energy needs from renewable resources at the flick of a switch, through technology, through digitalization, through systems integration. In order to get there, though, we need a new mindset. And I love Buckminster Fuller, Richard Buckminster Fuller, who wrote a book in 1969 titled Operation Manual for Spaceship Earth. And in that book, it says you never change things by fighting the existing reality. If you want to change something, build a new model that makes the old model obsolete. And I love this quote for so many reasons, but primarily because it tells us you have a certain amount of energy within your bodies that you can spend on something today. And it's your choice whether you spend that energy on telling what's wrong with the world or building what could work. And I love to be remembered on a day-to-day basis that I can spend my energy on trying to build new models that might make the old model obsolete. So this is an open invitation to all of you to build rather than fight the old system. Somebody who's really good at mindsets and positive mindsets is His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And I actually was there when Tilly also met the Dalai Lama. And last April on Earth Day 2022, it was my turn to meet His Holiness. And so I was in India with him and with a couple of people, out of which also you might recognize one face from the Czech Republic also, Martin Borsig. But we were there together in a dialogue on climate, on energy, and also what I love so much about the Dalai Lama, on technology, because he loves technology. He understands the importance of technology for the advancement of us as humankind. And as you can see, I look extremely happy, and he's holding my hand there. So I was like this little kid that was like the happiest in the entire world. Now, one of the things that we talked about there was also the internet, and my work revolves around the place where the internet and energy meet, the internet of energy. If you look at the history of the internet, this is the ARPA network in 1973. This is a map of the entire pre-internet, 36 users in total. And I can assure you that all of them were nerds, because you needed to be very nerdy to be able to communicate through this network. Now, in 1989, and I was raised by an internet pioneer myself, my mother, who was one of the first to go online in the late 80s in the Netherlands. She once literally told me, Arash, I'm fine with you playing outside so much, but you know what you should really do is spend more time on the computer. I believe that that's going to be really large. Now, I cannot hear the sound from the audience, but oftentimes people laugh at this comment because now we are telling our children the exact opposite, or we as kids are being told the exact opposite. Spend more time outside and less behind a computer. And this proves my mother right. This became really big. She believed in the power of the internet. So I was raised with that storyline around me. Now, the www protocol, which was designed by Tim Berners-Lee in 1989, meant something very big. It meant that you, as a non-nerd, could suddenly communicate with somebody else, regardless of where they are and regardless of the technology that they chose to use. And this opened up the internet to everybody. And this resulted in that last April, we welcomed the 5 billionth internet user globally. So we went from 36 users to 5 billion over the course of 49 years. That's it. Wow. But this also meant that we, from consumers, became prosumers. We were no longer consumers or end users of information and data and knowledge. No, we are not only the users, but also the producers of data and information and knowledge. So we moved from the encyclopedia era to the Wikipedia era. And whatever channel you choose to use, it might be Medium, it might be GitHub, it might be Wikipedia, it might be TikTok. We don't mind, but we are all free to get information and knowledge from it and put it on there. Now, the same movement is occurring within the field of energy. We are moving from a centralized system through a decentralized system to a distributed system of prosumers. This is a centralized system, which in real life looks like this. It's very sexy, as you can see. And it's perfectly designed for one-way traffic. So there's one big power plant in the middle, there's lots of users around it, and they, as long as they pay, get energy. Now we're going through the decentral era, which means that a lot of energy is being produced decentrally. This is a rooftop, for example, of Rotterdam Central Station, where I am right now. And through the decentral era, which is propelled by very steeply decreasing prices for example, solar panels or storage, these markets grow exponentially. So there's millions and millions and millions of places in Europe already where decentrally renewable energy is being produced and put on the grid. But this causes stress on the system because our system is perfectly designed for one-way traffic and not for two-way traffic. So we get basically jam-ups on the networks. This is called congestion, and it's a major issue. And now how are we going to solve this? We're going to solve this through a distributed energy system, and that's where energy and digital meet. Now, what you can really tell from this image as opposed to the previous one is that you can no longer see which one is a consumer, which one is a producer, because everything can be anything and everything is interconnected. And this is by design a peer-to-peer network, like internet is peer-to-peer. So energy becomes peer-to-peer also. It's all about local integration, which also means we don't only produce energy locally, but we also store it locally. We convert it locally, for example, from electricity to heat or otherwise. It's a multi-carrier system, so that means that it involves electricity and heat and molecules like gases, like hydrogen, for example. And it's all about energy independence on the local level, because that's what we need here in Europe. We need to become more energy independent as communities, as individuals, as countries, and as a continent. This is very much powered by the rise of the Internet of Things, the IoT. Already globally, there's over 14 billion interconnected devices that are connected somehow to the internet. Now, all these devices need energy, all of them. But many of those devices produce energy as a primary function, like every solar panel installation by now is IoT connected. Every wind turbine is IoT connected. And there's many devices that also have some energy as a residual flow, which means the leftover heat from an oven or an industrial oven or the brake regeneration from an electric car. If we can interconnect all these supplies and demands of energy over the Internet of Things, then you get a very dynamic system that functions very differently from the one that we know right now. In practice, it kind of looks like this. If you're fortunate enough to have an electric vehicle like this one in the middle, and it's connected to its station, then it can charge packets of energy from your solar panels. It can charge packets of energy from the neighbor's solar panels. It can send packets of energy from the car to your office space. It can send packets of energy to somebody's water cooker. So you packetize energy, and little bits go back and forth all the time to balance local grids out. So that's IoT and energy connected into an Internet of Energy. It basically means that we are letting go of our centralized planning and control system, like this beautiful classical orchestra, by the way, which is directed by one director. So there's all these educated musicians with their instruments in their hands, with their sheets in front of them, and they are perfectly in tune. And it's only when the director says go that they move something, and it sounds wonderfully. But the reality of our current energy system is a lot more like a jam session. It's all of us are jazz musicians. Anyone can do anything at any given moment, and together we have the responsibility to make it sound cool. And that results in swarm intelligence. Now, if you look at this beautiful murmuration of birds, 20,000 birds, which one is the planning and control bird? Which one is the CEO bird? Which one is the navigation bird? All of them are everything. So we embed the intelligence of the system within every device in the system. So we are learning from these birds and from other examples in nature how to redesign energy grids to function as a swarm rather than as something that is centrally controlled. Nikola Tesla, about a century ago, said, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy and frequency and vibration. And I love this quote as a musician, because that's also about energy and frequency and vibration. And I love this quote for so many more reasons. It's all about energy, frequency, and vibration. It's about harmonizing. And one of the things that strikes me about Nikola Tesla and many others are that is that they have a different mindset. And I sometimes call that the artist's mindset. This dance floor, for example, was designed by an artist. It couldn't have been designed by somebody else than somebody really creative, because what they thought of was, we're going to add piezo elements to this dance floor, and it's going to catch the energy of dancing people. The harder they dance, the more energy this floor is going to be generating. How cool is that? Or Pauline van Dongen, who made solar fabric, who is interweaving thin film technology in fabrics, which means that your coat can charge your phone in a couple of years' time. Or look at Ermi van Oers, who designed the living light. She, as an artist, looked at plants and thought, what is the difference between a leaf of a plant and a solar panel? Isn't it the case that both of them are catching sunlight and converting that into energy? And then she found out that by putting an anode and a cathode in the root system of a plant, she could actually power an LED light bulb. So she really has plant-powered lights. And we're now in the process of finding out how to bring this to scale. Or Ab Verhegge, who made a sun glacier. In 2013, he told me, I'm going to make a glacier in the desert, which is a crazy idea, but he did. At first, he came with these sketches. So he designed solar panels in the desert that generate a lot of electricity because there's a lot of sunlight there. And then he was going to use the electricity from those panels to cool a fluid that runs underneath these panels. And it was going to cool it below 0 degrees Celsius. And he said, I'm going to be able to make ice. And he brought this to a laboratory, 50 degrees Celsius, 10% humidity, which is very much Sahara circumstances, and he was able to make ice. And then a couple of years later, he had 2 prototypes in the desert of Mali, in the Sahara, making electricity, fresh water, ice out of thin air. And this was financed by the Dutch Ministry of Defense because they believed that this is a conflict prevention technology. Because if we find ways to fulfill our primary needs out of thin air, there's no need to fight wars over them anymore, as we are doing right now. So this is how we can achieve peace. And now, last year at the Expo 2020 in Dubai, he made a huge sun glacier together with a couple of other artists, with a solar roof on the Dutch pavilion, which generated a perpetual waterfall, which was feeding a vertical farm. So you had energy, water, and food out of thin air in the middle of the desert. It is possible. And the next mindset that I want to share with you is the hacker's mindset, because we need to hack through the systems of today. And the hacker's mindset really is facing big challenges. How are we going to balance networks without being able to control who's on them and what they do? How do we increase value as we sell less energy? My previous company was all about this, by the way. How do we achieve local energy autonomy but still being interconnected? And how do we design frameworks for freedom, which sounds like a paradox in itself, but it works this way. We think that freedom has to do with the absence of rules, but we feel freedom when the rules are very clear. So we need to design the new rules for the future of energy. And just last week, we had our first Transform Hackathon, where we had 27 teams, 48 hours together designing energy systems for the future. And we're going to have more of them. And we might bring them to the Czech Republic. And I would love to invite you to be a part of the first Transform Hackathon there also. We're on a simple mission: universal access to clean and renewable and conflict-free energy, because that's what I believe we all deserve. Imagine all the people sharing all the world, and then I want to invite you to dream big, but moreover, to develop those dreams into realities, into action. Because when you develop your dream into action, that's where you make your impact. That's where you make a difference. Thank you so much.